the counterintuitive thought of like, oh, like how can relaxing help me actually be more productive? And it does, because it just helps your brain recharge and you think more clearly. And so I definitely think that's a big part of productivity.
Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 4 of Health Hustlers Happy Hour. I am Jaclyn, copywriter for online health coaches.
And I'm Jackie, a behavioral scientist turned health habits coach. And today we are talking about productivity, which we sort of touched on a little bit in our last episode. We talked about juggling this like full-time and side hustle lifestyle that we both have. And I think a big part of how we're able to manage that is through productivity. So we're going to go deep today on how we're kind of approaching being productive in these really busy lives that we live. And, I'll just preface that we have not figured it out completely. So we're just going to kind of give you where we're at and what we've tried and experimented with and go from there. Yes. Jaclyn, you want to get us started here with kind of, I guess, what is your current, maybe we can just start with our current approach and we can go back in time and look at like other things we've tried that haven't worked. So.
Yes, definitely. My current approach, like you mentioned, is always changing. One thing that I have found, because along with having a full-time job and a side hustle, I also manage 4 Airbnb listings. And I have 2 children. One is in college, but the other one is very much home and busy. And I probably the number one productivity hack that I have realized is most important is planning my week, like taking a good chunk of my Sunday morning and planning my week. It's something that I've noticed when I don't do it, my life is chaos. And just yesterday, because yesterday was Sunday, right? Yeah. I was telling you, I remember messaging you and saying how, because I haven't, probably since before the holidays, I haven't been consistently planning my week and it's felt like chaos. And I was kind of pushing back on it yesterday morning when I was like literally planning I have time blocks and reminders on my phone and calendars. I have a calendar by my back door for my family. I have a calendar on my desk. I have a calendar on my work computer. And it just feels like everything is so planned out. And you had to remind me that, yes, it feels that way, but when it's all planned out on paper or on a digital planner, it's not swirling around in your brain. So, and of course you were right. And today I feel, even though the majority of my day today was all planned out, I feel freedom, which is, weird that you're a completely scheduled person, but you feel freedom. So I think the Sunday morning, week planning came from a course that I took with, her name is Chelsi Jo. Her Instagram handle is @chelsijo.co. And her program is Systemize Your Life. And she also has a podcast called Systemize Your Life. And we'll put that information in the show notes because her podcast offers a lot of free information. And that's where I got started. Just starting to organize my life. And she teaches kind of a time blocking-ish kind of approach. And where I'm also putting a lot of routines together within those time blocks that kind of automate everything. So it's a learning process, and I'm teaching my son a lot of these routines. But I chip away at it each week and it's really starting to work. So I think that's probably my number one productivity hack is planning out my week on Sunday. And then there's some additional tools that I use along the way, which we can get into. But I'll let you share your approach.
Yeah. Yeah, I think very similar, I think, in the sense that I use the weekends because during the week, like really the weekends are designated for setting myself up for success during the week because there's nothing worse than being in the middle of your week and feeling just like you've not done enough or not accomplished enough or you're just like totally chaotic. And so that, I think that Sunday and sometimes for me even Saturdays are the time for me to plan out and think ahead. And really in the behavioral science world, what we know is that people in general are really bad at planning ahead. We call this present bias. We like to just live in the moment and enjoy right now versus choosing to, essentially sit down, like you said, and write out what feels counterintuitive, write out essentially what your entire life needs to look like this week so that you can have more freedom later on. And so for me, ever since I learned about that in the behavioral science world, that is truly present bias is a cognitive bias that humans have, that it's like a negative thing that causes us to make short-term decisions. I now, with that awareness, know I have to function. I will function. I will set myself up. I'll be way more productive when I, have my life planned out a bit more ahead of time and I think ahead. So that's definitely one strategy I use. I think I do that's the macro. And I kind of psychologically, I resist against the time blocking. For me, time blocking does not work. It always backfires on me. And I think it's because this idea of you've got something scheduled on every second of your calendar. I see that and it stresses me out immediately because I know as soon as I'm behind, then if I'm running behind on something or a task took me longer than anticipated, which again, we're really bad at figuring out how long something's going to take us to do. And sometimes you just need more time or you're really in a flow state and you want to keep going. But then with the time blocking, you're then I just need to cut off this creativity now and just move on to the next task. And it just doesn't feel natural. And so I resist against time blocking a lot. I did just recently share a video on what you can do instead. And I think it's really along the lines of what you were just saying, Jaclyn, of segmenting your day out. So generally, I think for me, my weekdays, I start the day with, I get my coffee and I focus on whatever my main mission or goal is for my business right now. So for me, social media is the area that I know I need to do a better job in. And so I'm really, this whole year is dedicated to building the know, like, and trust factor via social media marketing. So for me, it's I want to dedicate 1 to 2 hours in the morning to that. And I give myself time ranges too, so that again, it's not that fixed thing. And if I don't do it that morning, it's majority of the time I am, but if I have something come up, I got to take my dog to the vet, I don't feel bad because compounding wise, most of the time I'm doing that thing in the morning. And then it helps me kind of transition to my day into my full-time job. So then I do my full-time job. And then maybe at the end of the day, I, have a little extra steam to do another task or do more social media stuff for the business. So I think it's realistic, management of expectations. I'm not gonna, with a full-time job, I'm not gonna accomplish the world. I'm not gonna be able to do all these massive projects in a day. It's going to take me multiple days to get a bigger project done because I don't have the time during the 9 to 5. So that's kind of how I go through my, I used to work out in the mornings. Now I actually use the workout as a reward for accomplishing a lot during the day. So I'll do a little bit of 9 to 5 work, and then usually around lunchtime or a little after lunchtime, I'll do a quick workout, take my dogs to the park, do something to get outside, so that it's I feel it's a treat. It's a reward for working hard. So I kind of flowed through my day like that a little bit, and it gives me energy. I think that's the other that's the third productivity secret or hack that I have, is taking breaks from the work and giving yourself time to decompress. Because, and I want to say it was maybe one of my clients, she's a physician, and she was she had this epiphany on our call the other day that she's like, the more time I've been giving, like she dedicates like she has Thursdays off and Saturdays for doing just stuff for her. She's like, she's now like, she had this like insane inbox because she gets lots of messages from clients, and she was sharing with me when we first started working together. And she was so excited in our last call last week because she's like, I've almost cleared that inbox out. And I don't know how, because I've been spending more time focused on me and resting and downshifting. And she's like, and now I'm more productive at work. And it's that counter, I think, like what you were saying in the beginning, like the counterintuitive thought of like, oh, like how can relaxing help me actually be more productive? And it does, because it just helps your brain recharge and you think more clearly. And so I definitely think that's a big part of productivity that, it's not always easy, because I think you and I, like, sometimes we both get burned out because we're just got like a goal or we've got a deadline. But it's important to recognize when that burnout's starting to happen so that you can take the time off and dedicate at least a little time each day to de-stressing. So I think those are my three things for productivity.
Yeah. I think that's huge, because even with my 9 to 5, I can sit down, and part of one of my tasks is answering a corporate mailbox, and I can, I can really laser focus and blow through them. And then it's a good 2 hours in, and I'm, it's counterproductive for me to continue with that task, because, I'm making mistakes, or I have to read something 4 times to understand it. And that's when I know, okay, it's time to take a break and do something different.
Yeah.
Which I think is another, that old school mentality of the productivity and just 8 hours, do as much as you can in 8 hours. It's just so, against how our brains work, I think most people's brains work, mine at least. So,
I mean, I hate to break it to a lot of these corporate companies, but your employees are not working 8 hours straight.
Right,
like,
exactly.
It's not realistic. And a lot of those people are just sitting at their desk to just check a box to have visibility. And I know that's why companies want people to come into the office again, because they want, I don't know. I don't know. Like, they're saying one thing, but I know what the reality is of like why they actually want people in. And it's just to suck them back into the culture. But again, that's not healthy for people, I don't think. But I do appreciate, companies that are at least doing the hybrid option. I think that makes a lot more sense. Because I think we were talking about it in the last episode too, like your day in the office. I think Jaclyn, yours is Wednesday, Friday, or it swaps sometimes, like each week it's a little different. For me, I'll be honest, like I have been resisting going back into the office for so long. And so now I'm committing myself to doing a Wednesday. So I think from like my side gigs stuff, we just talked about this, Jaclyn, like literally I'm going to be like, I'm not going to probably do anything for my side gig on Wednesdays. That's going to be my day, because I'm going to have to drive in, I have to commute in, and then I got to go be social. And so I plan on actually getting no corporate job work done either, because that's for me to literally show my face, talk to people, build connections, which that's what these companies keep saying is so important, that they want us in because they want us to build connections with people. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to try that, see how that works out. And I'm probably not going to get much work done unless it's like a brainstorm.
Yeah.
If you even really count that as work, so anyway, I'm anticipating, and I'm trying to be more realistic with what I can actually accomplish in my days. And I think that's, for me, like been a big help. I think a lot of us overestimate our abilities. Sometimes we overestimate what we can handle. And sure, you can be a robot, but it's not sustainable. And this is like what I coach all my health clients on, of like the sustainability of your routines. And that's actually how you build consistency versus just doing that. Like Monday you go balls to the wall, and then by Tuesday you're freaking I cannot work today. I'm so tired. So, anyway.
Yes, absolutely. So what are some of the tools that you've been using?
Yeah, that's I was going to say the one thing I do is, like I was talking about the macro, right? And so my micro, like zoomed in So like the macro planning happens on the weekends, looking at the full week, and then day to day, what tools I've been using, like I really love. So I've got my iPad here, and I love this Apple Pen. I was a little skeptical when I bought it. Like, this is probably, I'm not going to use this. I friggin' love this thing. So just in the notes app on my iPad, I like write out, like I can actually handwrite things. So I create, and you'll see this on my stories a lot, I'm writing out my daily to-do list. So I kind of know, like, because I've already done the work on Saturday or Sunday, planning out the macro, now I can zoom in and be like, all right, what are the, like, if I have this one goal in my head, what are the behaviors that I'm like, I feel like I'm talking about, like, I'm like talking to a health coaching client right now. Like, what are those behaviors that add up to that outcome goal, that project that you're working on or whatever. And a lot of times it's not super crystal clear, right? Like if my goal is like my whole year is like my main focus is social media, building trust and creating quality content, then that's like that's a year-long thing. So it's hard to like, so anyway, I basically have to like create milestones for myself to then create behaviors around. And for me, I know that the behavior is like, I just got to do the thing. I got to do brainstorms. I got to actually create, I got to edit. So I have like a general sense of like, what are the specific topics, the things that I need to do on a day-to-day basis that are the behaviors that will add up to those results. And then I also, on that to-do list, I add fun things in there too. I think I saw a Matthew McConaughey video recently where he's like talking about how at night, like the day before he does his to-do list, I don't do that. I like to do it in the morning because it's like my mood changes sometimes. I can feel my energy changing. So I think that's why I like to do it first thing in the morning while I'm sipping on coffee. But I think including, working out, taking the dogs for a walk, making dinner, like the human things that also have to happen outside of you running a business or being a full-time employee, like those things need to be on that list too, and enjoying free time. So I know, again, it sounds like really, like you were saying, Jaclyn, like counterintuitive, like I gotta like tell myself to have free time. And like, that's so counterintuitive or just sounds like so micromanagey, but trust me, it's just like, if you have it written, I think it's just the idea of like, you write something down, you're more likely to follow through with it, which there is some science behind that. So I won't bore you with those stats.
Well, you know me, I love that stuff. But
I know. So tools, the iPad, the notes app, creating the main tool is just like creating a daily to-do list. We can talk about Notion. We just started using this tool, Notion, that has been like mind blowing. I hired this girl to help me with social media, and she's like having me use this tool, Notion. So I share it with Jaclyn. So she and I have been getting like super nerdy. I am someone that comes from the UX space, like UX design, and I've never experienced a tool that's so intuitive, in the sense that like there's so much going on and there's so many mental models there, but like I just really love Notion. Like I think we were just talking, like we picked it up a few days ago and we're like already like balls deep in it, like very, like very like, okay, I think this is going to work. It's going to help us with project planning, task management, those to-do lists, and planning our meetings together, planning stuff for this podcast. Like it's all there. So I think Notion's been another really awesome tool. I'm trying to think if there's any others that I use in particular, for productivity in particular, but
yeah.
Jaclyn, you probably have way more than I do. So you tell me what tool you're using.
No, I mean, not really. I try to keep it as simple as possible because I've gone down that road of like all the things. And then it just becomes too much. It's like too much to update. But like I mentioned, my weekly planning, I plan out my week on a paper calendar. And then like you mentioned, like, and I shouldn't say time blocks because that's not really what it is. It's like segments of your day. So like I have my workout in the morning, and then I have like the morning routine of, making lunch for my son, or, like all the things. And I have to he's 10 and he is a 10-year-old crazy boy. And I have to constantly remind him, even if we have, like, I have checklists for him all over the house. But I have to remind him, buddy, go through your, morning checklist. Make sure you have your Chromebook. Make sure you have your lunch. Make sure you have your water bottle. So, all of those little routines are in our morning like chunk.
Can I also really, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just have to say this for all the women out there that have sons. Like, if my husband had learned how to do this growing up, I would be so happy, because I literally feel like he's like a 12-year-old boy and I have to tell him exactly what to do. So the fact that you're training your son on how to do this for himself is glorious. It's so amazing.
Well, my husband is the same. And I said, if there's one thing that I will do as the mother of a son, is make sure that he grows up to be the type of man that a woman wants to marry. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously a constant work in progress. And like I said, I have to remind him just to look at the checklist. But I know, that it's just something that it's just going to have to develop over time. And he's improving really well. And not to mention, I'm 45 years old and I still can't follow a checklist half the time. So, but just knowing the checklists are a good tool. But yeah, so I have a paper planner, and then it goes from my paper planner, reminders go onto my phone in my Google Calendar, because I have different days that I have to pick my son up from school, from his after school stuff. And then there are different days he comes home on the bus, and it's different times that he comes home. And so I need a reminder. So I get a reminder to like remind me when my son is coming home or if I have to pick him up. And other than that, like I said, I have the family calendar by the back door for everyone to see what they're doing. And because I do my meal planning right in my weekly, the paper calendar, but then, I'll do the Instacart, the Amazon subscriptions. And then for Airbnb stuff, I have like a bunch of software I have to update all the time. So I just have a little folder on my laptop that I click in and I know what I have to do. So yeah, I've tried to simplify it as much as possible. And now the Notion, which mind blowing. I think that's going to be life changing.
Your life more complicated. Like, let's use this new tool.
No, but it's good because I can't, like, literally my weekly thing, like my weekly planning and my paper planner is purely home and family. And so I had to come up with something that, we share together where we can pass, and I'll just be honest. I was going to write an email and I had to like message you. What were those things? What was this and what was this? And I'm like, I have it written down in one of my 14 notebooks. And I'm like, all right, the notebooks.
We talk on Boxer a lot. So like,
that is a tool.
So like, that's our tool, but like we constantly both like, I mean, and this is just the thing, like humans in general just have really bad memory. So I think for us, we were getting to that point where we were trying to make so many decisions, and then we didn't write them down because we're on this like, Boxer is like a voice messaging app. And so that it's so great for like daily communication. But when it comes to decision making, it's like, we've got to figure out a better system. So I think we're getting to that right with Notion.
Yes. Well, and two, like we'll be chit-chatting. I'm like up doing laundry, like folding laundry, and and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. But I'm like, I'm not going to be able, I'm not going to run all the way down to my laptop and like put the note in. So this Notion is great because I can just hop into the app and write myself a note, and it'll, it integrates across all the, so I think that's going to be great. I think that's going to free up a lot of mental space for both of them.
I agree. I know. I kind of like, it's funny because Notion, for anyone that works in corporate, it's like a wiki, basically. And so a little bit in the beginning, I was like, oh, like I was kind of resisting against this, like over planning. Cause I think there's that balance too. And when Jaclyn and I've talked about this too, and there's procrastination where it's like you overly try to plan and you overly detail every little thing out instead of just doing the thing. And so I was worrying, I was like, maybe this is going to bog me down too much. However, I think that's also, so again, it's like a balancing act of like not being overly prescriptive and overly detailed, similar to the time blocking where I just find that to be overly prescriptive. So I think it's finding that balance of like, okay, we can make our Notion board as detailed or least detailed as we want it to be to fit our style of work.
Yeah.
And so I think in general, regardless of the tool of Notion, I think that's just like a general approach, is making sure that it's not becoming your planning process isn't becoming so mundane that it's preventing you from doing the actual work, right? And that's where I think we talk about, like, Sundays are good for like doing the mundane planning, or a weekend day, and then the actual work, like hit the ground running, do the behaviors, be living in the action on the Monday through Friday, right? So I think those are.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those. I'll get stuck in the weeds of like planning, like, ooh, look at these new highlighters, and look at this new planner, and look at this new like Notion. I could have dug into that all day yesterday, and I'm like, okay, I just need to get the information in there and get it scheduled, and then I have to walk away. So, yeah.
Well, I feel like this is like why we're a great partnership too, because I think I'm not, it's not like I don't like to plan things, but I think sometimes I'm very like, just sit, like, just do it. And I don't, then I like, I'm like, okay, but to what extent am I like, how does this map out to like my actual goal? Yeah. So I think it's nice that we both bring these different perspectives, and it's bringing us a little bit in the middle of that, again, that balance, that happy medium, where I think like a little bit of planning does actually really help, versus just being only action oriented. Because you can do something all day long in it, but if it's not actually going to get you to, like, you could be on the wrong path completely. And so it's good to, zoom out a little bit sometimes. And then for those that like to stay zoomed out, figuring out how to zoom in too, and get to work. So I don't know. Yeah. Another dichotomy that I've discovered about us as we talk on these podcasts. And
I know, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Just creating balance.
Yes. Just lovely. Another benefit of having a partner to work with, because
for sure.
Otherwise you're just stuck in your like current way of doing things. And it probably isn't always the most efficient or, productive. But
no, definitely not. Not for me, at least.
I was also thinking, as we were both talking, productivity, I think, is also related to health. And I think both of you and I were both, we're saying like working out. So I think it's like, getting good sleep, exercising your body, moving your body, and eating right. That's going to improve your productivity in life, because you're fueling your brain the right way. You're giving your brain all the right things. You're just going to feel better. You're going to feel more energized. Not drinking or reducing your drinking. That is, just the basics. And I think, as a business owner, it's really stressful. And so sometimes those things fall by the wayside. And I won't lie, like, even as a health coach, like, sometimes my sleep suffers, sometimes my stress levels get way too high. And I think it is all about managing those things so that you can, again, have that right amount of productivity and output to get you where you want to go.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that's ties us back to, and when I was working on your brand voice guide that I'm working on, I mean, I'm a firm believer in like health is the basis of everything. And I'm sure you feel the same way, obviously. Yeah. You can't do anything in your business, within your family, if you're not showing up for yourself, and I mean, I know even just if I have like a high glucose like breakfast, I'm a mess the rest of the day. I can't think straight, and so, and that's not that I didn't even realize that until I started working with you. Like the difference I feel if I'm having something sugary for breakfast, it's just that constant spike. So yeah, bringing it back to health always.
Yeah, right. Well, it like I absolutely agree. Health is the basis of pretty much everything. And I was going to say with the glucose thing, like it takes up like mental space in your head too, because then you're just like, oh, now I have a craving. I'm hungry again, and I just ate, but I'm hungry again because my glucose is dropping. And
and then you're seeking out that next hit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and then to that, I wanted to share an analogy with this, like filling up your cup, filling up, doing things for you so that you can give more, you can scale yourself more. I think my physician client was just telling me this too. I can't remember who she said it came from, But it was the analogy of like, the champagne glass is all stacked up and you fill that first one, the top glass, and then it begins to overflow and fill up the other glasses. Like, I think that analogy really hits home in terms of you got to fill up your own cup first if you're going to make a difference, if you're going to scale yourself. And I think especially with what we're doing, with what all of you all are doing, trying to manage all these different balls and all these different courts, you got to go back to number one at the end of the day. And so just another reminder that your health is incredibly important, and don't think that you shouldn't take care of yourselves. I think, I see it a lot where people can get away with it for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It always does catch up. It will always catch up. So
yeah,
make time for yourself for sure.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more top of mind for people, especially after COVID. I think people and just everyone's slowing down during, lockdowns and everything. You just start to realize how important reducing your stress, keeping yourself healthy, because ultimately we can't run from viruses for the rest of our lives. You know what I mean? Like the best way to stay healthy is to, those every day-to-day habits. So
yeah, I totally agree. I think I know Joe Rogan's controversial, but his message during COVID was, instead of treating the symptoms, like get ahead of them, right? Like you just, taking vitamin, like being out in the sun, like do the basic human things that you're meant to do, start there versus, just waiting till you get sick and then having to take whatever Paxlovid. I keep thinking of that stupid commercial in my head.
Yeah. Well, it's the only thing we can control, So
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. That's actually, and that's a really good, we should save this topic for another time.
Yeah, we're totally getting off topic.
I know. Well, that principle though, I just feel like and that even from episode 3, when we were talking about, like why we got into part-time work or not part-time, but side business, like it really stems from what you can control. Like I can't control my corporate political environment. Like it's so political and it really was wearing on me. And, my husband's like, you need to figure out how to compartmentalize. And the issue was, I just didn't have anything else to it's like, cool. I can my whole identity, my whole brain is made up of like work. And, I had someone ask me once too, how do you view work as like a part of your life, or is it like a separate entity? Like it's just part of the process. And I think my answer at that time was, oh yeah, everything is integral to this job. I work out so that I can be productive at this job, that kind of thing. And I don't know if that's the wrong answer still. I'm not sure. I think because my context of like having a side business has switched, I still agree with my mentality of like, I do everything in service, not everything in service to that, but like I understand that foundationally, like if my health is not in place, my foundation's not in place, then I can't do the side business stuff. So I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts on that, because it could still be a mental issue for me that I'm having. Like I shouldn't view my life that way, but
I don't know. That's a good question. I think.
Well, I also don't have kids, right? So like maybe that's also the angle of like I just my life isn't filled up with a bunch of substance yet.
Yeah, because I definitely, when I think about I have to. Everything is just so I can show up and be the best mom, for sure, the best wife, and so that I have the energy to do what lights me up, whether that be the side hustle, whether that be going on vacation and stuff, right? That is, I look at copywriting as doing what I enjoy. And, if I don't have the health habits in place that I'm working on, then I don't have the energy for all of it, Right. So I don't necessarily, and knowing you, I don't think you necessarily do all of that for your work, whatever that is. I just think that you're in a season right now that's your passion.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah, you're totally right. I think that's true. Yeah, I think that was the mental shift I had during COVID is like, I think I did. It's like everything revolved around this identity of I'm a workaholic. I'm a work person. Work is my life. And like, I've got these little like, like it's like a hub and spoke. The hub was my work. And then the spokes are like, okay, health feeds into that. And, I don't even know what else really fed into that. Just like, those were like my two identities really. Right. And so I think COVID helped me kind of like, all right, realize like maybe the hub is actually it should be my health, my well-being, my just like my livelihood. And then the spokes are now like the side business and maybe a little bit of the full-time work. Like I don't, it's not like, I think the spoke for side business is a lot bigger, but still more into my happiness than anything. Right. So yeah, I guess I have maybe changed. Thanks for this therapy session. I'm like,
yeah, of course. Well, I guess that wraps up productivity. I mean, I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about as we move forward.
Yeah. But actually, I forgot. Sorry, we did get off track. I think we were going to talk about AI a little bit because I know that's a topic that everyone's talking about, at least in my corporate job. How can we use AI to replace jobs or make, I think so first of all, my perspective as a behavioral scientist is that AI is going to augment jobs, not replace people. I don't think it should replace people. I think it's going to augment for the most part in certain jobs. Like maybe there are some jobs that it will truly just automate, but I hope we have plans in place to help those people like up level their education and skills so that they can, move forward in their lives and have jobs and meaning and stuff like that. So anyway, that's my perspective on AI, but I think you and I are trying to figure out how to augment AI. And we could maybe just do a separate episode on this because I think it definitely deserves an entire segment, but we could just quickly touch on like, I mean, I don't know, like what are your thoughts on AI? You took a course. Maybe you could talk about that.
I did. Well, obviously AI is big in the copywriting space. And the overall thoughts from copywriters is, like you said, we can use it as a tool. It's never, as people are starting to kind of see through the online, I'm trying to think of how, they're kind of seeing through like the online marketing that's AI generated, the change over to like extreme human-based, like conversational communication, especially when it comes to like marketing, is just not something that AI can do right now. And like I said, I've used it as like an outline, but I just haven't seen ChatGPT in particular create anything that I would put out there as an email without probably tweaking at least 50% of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's absolutely beneficial on like admin tasks.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, the human side of it lacks because it's just, it's not there yet. And I don't know if it'll ever really fully get there, but I do think you're right in terms of it can help us with brainstorming, getting like, it's a good starting point. It's almost like having, an artificial brainstorm session with a group of people where you can just keep spitting out, new prompts to it and it'll help kind of evolve. Cause I don't think I've ever like taken a name or, even like a full, like you said, like you usually have to edit most of it, like, but it will give me ideas that lead me to a nice name for a product or a service or like a webinar or something. So I think there's that, which is helpful in that sense. And I know I don't know, I'm still figuring out like other ways that, like, I guess the other thing with AI is, and I think of it as like automations too. Like, I know it's not AI, but like I use Zapier and with Active Campaign, my email marketing tool, like there's automations I create. So in a sense, like I also bucket it under that of like it's automating what are the, like you said, the tasks that it can automate. Like I love that. Like the less I have to go in and like manually add people to email lists or add them to a funnel or something, like that's amazing. But those have been in place for a long time. It's not like the ChatGPT or Gen AI that we've been seeing as like the real, what people really think of AI as. So definitely automations are great, but yeah, this newer AI is different in the sense that we want to believe it's going to humanize, like it can replace human jobs, but I don't think it can. Not yet.
No,
at least.
I don't either. No, definitely not yet. But I think it's something we can, because we've had long conversations about that. And I think it would be a good episode to dig into how both of our industries can use AI and where maybe AI doesn't belong. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's a great.
Yeah, let's definitely have an episode on it because I'm like, my head's already spiraling. I could go very deep on this. And actually, we should talk about too, maybe we'll do this as our next episode, but you talk about what you learned in that course, because I think that was insightful to me of like reprogramming, like how to basically like program ChatGPT based on like your target market, right? And you like feed it like, hey, I need you to do this for me with this information. Like I'm not even describing it right, but we can get into that because I think for all of you out there that are trying to figure out how to use AI to be efficient, I think that was for me a really cool insight. And I think we can just dig into like how we're using it in our day to day. And like you said, how we're going to see it change in different industries. And like, I'm even doing some studies for my full-time job where I'm trying to augment AI with the behavioral science stuff. And that's really cool because it's at least my company acknowledging like, okay, AI is not a human being. And we all have cognitive biases and it doesn't understand, like it understands how to spit information out about those things. It doesn't understand how to recognize when someone's experiencing that symptom and how to intervene with it. So anyway, we'll leave you with those cliffhangers. So
yes, stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. This was episode number 4 and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.